Assalamu alaikum. Welcome in today's class. Today we have a lesson Independent Nations in Southeast Asia. This is chapter 19 section 2 and you can reach to this lesson in your textbook page number 658. Lesson objectives are that you must be able to explain the political and economic contrasts in mainland Southeast Asia. You must be able to understand how Indonesia's size and diversity pose different challenges. And then you must be able to summarize how the Philippines struggled towards democracy. Some of the terms mentioned in the lesson, they are, for example, autocratic. It's a kind of a government that holds all the powers. It's an absolute authority. Aung San Suu Kyi, she's from Myanmar. She was given Nobel Peace Prize for her efforts for the human rights in the country and against the military dictatorship in the Myanmar that hold the power from 1962 to 2011. Sukarno, he was the first president of Indonesia after the independence from Holland. Suharto was a military general who took over the power from Sukarno and then ruled the country as a dictator for almost 3 decades. East Timor was a former Portuguese colony that was seized by Indonesia in 1975, and in 2002 it again got independence from Indonesia. Since then, East Timor is an independent country. Ferdinand Marcos was elected president of Philippines. He took over power in 1965, but then he became a dictator and pressed the basic freedoms of the citizens. Eventually, the rival Benigno Aquino, for example, he was killed by the forces, by the agents of Ferdinand Marcos. But then ultimately, the widow of Benigno Aquino, Corazon Aquino, she was elected as president in 1986 when Ferdinand Marcos actually refused to accept the results of the election. Under the public pressure, he was forced to accept the result and then he resigned from the power and ultimately ended his political career. Our first question today is that what challenges did Southeast Asian nations face after winning independence? Southeast Asia includes a portion of the Asian mainland and thousands of islands. Much of it had been colonized by Western powers like Britain, France, Spain, Netherlands. During World War II, however, the Japanese occupation broke the powers of the Europeans that sparked the local rebels to fight against the foreign occupation. After the World War II ended, these rebels demanded independence from the colonial powers of Europe. Southeast Asia is a region of great social, political, religious, cultural contrasts. Prosperous market economies such as Malaysia and Thailand have existed side by side with brutal autocratic regimes such as Myanmar in the western part of Southeast Asia. It is also a region of great religious diversity, where all the major religions are existing side by side throughout the ages. This map shows the religious diversity of Southeast Asia. You can see that Philippines and East Timor, they are dominated by Roman Catholic Christianity. Indonesia, Malaysia and Brunei are dominated by Sunni Muslims. Vietnam, Thailand, Laos and Myanmar, they are dominated by Buddhists, as well as some other local religions are also available in big numbers. Indonesia also has some other local religions and in a big numbers. So how the uh, religious outlook of the region appears is very much clear that it is a region with diverse representation where the challenge of unity is a one of the biggest, not only in the region but also in the world, because all of the religions, they have conflicting interests. Now, this is another representation of the major religious groups in the region. For example, Indonesia and Malaysia are dominated by Muslims. Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam are dominated by the Buddhists, while the Philippines is dominated by Christians. Malaysia has been one of the most prosperous nations of Southeast Asia. Once the colony of Britain, it has one of the most diverse population structure. People of Chinese and Indian descent have long been dominating in the businesses, but slowly and gradually government has worked out to include the Malay majority into country's prosperity, and they have increased their influence and share into the businesses that are being run in the private sector. The complete opposite of the Malaysia's economic prosperity and political stability is the country of Myanmar. It was a former British colony, at that time known as Burma. In 1948, Burma got independence from British rule, but in 1962, a military government took over the power and ruled the country until 2011 as a dictatorship. During the military rule, the foreign trade has declined and the standard of people has gone on decrease. Opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been working to bring back democracy in the country. But the military government in 1990 rejected the elections, as a result of which Aung San Suu Kyi was put into house arrest, where she stayed there until 2012. In 1991, she was awarded Nobel Peace Prize for her efforts to bring democracy in Myanmar, but she was unable to receive this award until 2012, when she was eventually released from the house arrest. One of the most important countries in terms of geography and politics in the region is Indonesia. Indonesia has been faced with difficulties due to its diversity and geography. It was a colony of Netherlands until 1949. Majority of the people of Indonesia are Javanese and 90% of them are Muslims. The country geographically is spread over 13,000 islands, so achieving a unity of all the citizens is one of the biggest challenge to the Indonesian state. Indonesia began its journey as a democracy under its first president, Sukarno. He called for the unity and acceptance of the minority rights. His reforms did not go well with all sections of the society, and he became authoritarian. But eventually he was replaced by a military government. In 1967, military general Suharto seized the power. He ordered a crackdown on the communists and the suspected communists, the people who were believed are the people who were suspected to be a communist. Under Suharto's rule, authoritarianism increased, and hundreds and thousands of Indonesians, those who criticized the government policies, were subject to persecution or killing. In 1997, Indonesia was hurt by another challenge, which was in the form of financial crisis in Asia. Suharto was forced to resign from the power in 1998 after a massive demonstration against the government's corruption. Elected leaders since then are trying to recover or restore the democracy and democratic institutions in the country. On the religious front, Indonesia also has been facing greatest challenges because religious and ethnic tensions have been source of a conflict in Indonesia. For example, in Moluccas, Christians and Muslims have been battling against each other throughout the history. Discrimination against the Chinese minority has been witnessed throughout the ages, whereas the rebels in Papua on the island of New Guinea and Muslim separatists in Aceh have been demanding independence from autocratic government in Jakarta. Along with political, economic, religious, and ethnic challenges, Indonesia has been facing with some additional challenges as well. For example, the armed separation movement of East Timor started in 1975 and ended in 2002. Similarly, the tsunami that came in 2004 killed more than 100,000 people in Aceh province. Aceh was the home of separation movement, which eventually gave another opportunity to the people of Aceh for demanding separation because the government in Jakarta was unable to resettle the people who were displaced by the tsunami floods. The tsunami not only ravaged the Indonesia but also Thailand, Sri Lanka and other islands in the region. Another important country in the region is the country of Philippines. It is also made up of many islands like Indonesia and has a diverse population. Philippines has been a colony of Spain in the past. Spain was replaced by United States as a colonial power. It was ruled for almost 50 years and then eventually in 1949 it became an independent country. Catholic Christianity is dominant religion in the country. Muslims also make a large portion of the national population. At independence, Philippines started its journey as a democracy, but wealthy elite controlled the politics and the economy. The peasants' majority was poor. For years, the government battled hawks, or you can say the local communists, with strong peasant support. But when Ferdinand Marcos was elected as a president in 1965, he abandoned democracy and established a dictatorship in which he cracked down on the basic freedoms of the citizens and eventually managed to get his political rival Benigno Aquino killed through his agents. Finally, in 1986, Marcos was forced by all the political factions in the country to conduct elections. He was defeated by Corazon Aquino, the widow of the slain rival of Marcos. She was elected as the president of the country, but Marcos refused to acknowledge the results of the election. But under the public pressure, he was forced to resign from the office and end his political career. Although the democracy was restored in the country, but still Philippines faced with many challenges to recover economy, to deal with poverty and the urban unrest, as well as at the same time they had some ethnic challenges in the south where Muslims, those who make up majority of the population in the south of the country, they demanded separation. So these challenges continued to exist even today. Philippines, like many other Southeast Asian nations, are going through the times of economic as well as political recovery, and still they are faced with great challenges in the shape of armed rebellions, in the shape of religious tensions in the regions that are fueled by foreign powers, particularly in the West. I hope the things are a bit clear because we are short of time. If still you are unable to comprehend any point, you are welcome to come back in the Zoom class and ask any question that is related to the topic. Until that time, see you. Thank you very much.